I'm Jerry Crow with the Pacifica Historical Society and today's host of the show Footprints of Pacifica, the weekly show where we explore and discover the lure and lore of lovely Pacifica, its character and its characters. The focus of today's show is Chris Hunter and his recent book on legendary locals. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Jerry. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Why don't we take a minute to just discuss the creative process? How long were you just doing advanced thinking about this project until you actually started to put it together physically?
I would say about 18 months. I was very fortunate to have worked with, actually with you on the Pacifica history book about 10 years ago, I think it's been now. Mm-hmm. And the publisher called me up once and said, we're thinking about doing this whole new series of books about legendary locals of cities all over the country. And so I thought I would love to try to do that. And the project was about a year and a half long from the time of actually getting the contract and having the book come out January 6th of this year.
Was it tough to select the particular individuals? It's a big theme. I imagine you couldn't catch everybody that you might consider interesting.
I put in the book an apology to all the people who are very legendary, either in their own minds or in the minds of other Pacificans. And you're right, I couldn't get everybody. But because I was the editor and publisher of the Pacifica Tribune and worked there for 17 years, one of the things that I knew I had an advantage over some other possible authors who would do something like this is I had total access to the files of the Pacifica Tribune. And as I started putting together my lists of characters and personalities that I wanted to include, I realized that many of them I had actually taken the pictures myself when I was working at the Tribune. So I had an enormous amount of impact in the way this book looks, because I took a lot of the pictures in here. And
their format does require a lot of photographs to.
Yeah, well, it is a photo picture book with captions, large captions that explain it. And mm-hmm. I think that people really like to see that because, especially in a small town like Pacifica, everyone knows everyone else. And so one of the great joys I've had now that this book has come out is how many people have said they recognize the people in the book, they know about them, they're pleased to read about them, they're pleased to see these pictures about them. Some people have said, and what about this surfer, or what about this artist, or what about, and I have to agree, there are a lot of, there's not an unlimited supply of pictures or pages, but I did the best I could to come up with 128 pages of people.
Well, I really enjoyed reading it. And so let's talk about a selection of just a few that catch my eye here. This is a picture of Mary Harris.
Well, Mary Harris is someone I actually had written about several times while I was a reporter in the paper. And she's a wonderful former teacher and long-term artist who is also a political activist. And everyone who's in the art community in Pacifica knows about Mary Harris, either learned from her or appreciated her art or appreciated her personality. And she's in her 90s now, and one of the things that people know about Mary is that she lives in a very secluded part of Pacifica called Shelter Cove, which is a hidden, you can't get to it except from a long walkway of stairs, of handmade stairs that go down to basically a cove right on the ocean. And Mary has lived there for decades. But she's a wonderful person. She's an artist. She's part of the original group of artists that was involved in the Sanchez Art Center, and has had a big influence on the art community in Pacifica, and that was partly why I thought I should include her in this book.
Yeah, very interesting person, and you see her walking all over town. She's hale and hearty. While we're on the topic of the Art Center, it also houses Pacifica performances, and this shows Mildred Owens.
Well, I have to say that Mildred Owens was one of my favorite people that I got to know in Pacifica as a reporter and as a patron of the arts. She was a fantastic singer and singing teacher for just hundreds and hundreds of people throughout the Bay Area. And she was a real force for the creation of the Arts Center and the artistic cultural environment here in Pacifica through the Pacifica Heritage Council and that became Pacifica Performances. And Morning Nichols is a woman who is a singer and a performer herself who took over for Mildred when Mildred died, and has done a great job of being the artistic director of the Sanchez Arts Center. And
yeah, they've kept it going. And
Mildred Owens Performing Arts Center, it was named after her. So
yes.
I really felt strongly that Mildred, from a personal perspective and also from a general legendary quality, Mildred was an amazing person here in Pacifica.
Indeed. And speaking of the Nichols family, here's both Morning and Jim.
Yeah, well, I'm a little biased about both of these people. I think that they're remarkable, friendly, interesting human beings and artists and performers and Pacificans. Jim, I would like to point out, Jim Nichols is probably one of the top Chet Atkins-style guitarists in the whole world. And for example, when he goes to France, people come from all over Europe to study with him at music conferences. And he goes to Nashville, and he knew Chet Atkins. And if anyone in Pacifica who has ever heard Jim Nichols play the guitar, they come away with an amazing sense of, oh, well, this guy is a magical guitarist.
Very talented, yeah.
And his wife is a beautiful singer, and together they just create a wonderful performance package. And I understand that Jim Nichols also runs all the lights at the Mildred Owens Concert Center too. So they're both very involved in Pacifica.
Many facets.
But I just wanted to point out that one of the things, it isn't the only thing, but one of the things that I tried to capture in this book was people from Pacifica who were well known in Pacifica for something, but also might have a recognition or a reputation outside of Pacifica as well, either in the arts or sports or some. And that was one of the qualities that I looked for. And also I didn't want to duplicate the book that I had helped you with, the Pacifica history book, which had a lot of personalities in it also. But I wanted to add more contemporary people and just take a look at people who had made some kind of mark outside of Pacifica as well as within Pacifica.
Mm-hmm. Well, this Stephen Johnson is a lesser-known type amongst Pacificans. He might be better known elsewhere because of his fine arts photography and the amazing places he's gone.
Yeah, well, the thing about Stephen Johnson, if people want to Google Stephen Johnson on his digital photography, he is also world famous and does workshops. People come to Pacifica to his studio to study digital photography, and he has presented photo workshops all over the world. And one of the things that he specializes in is high definition, super high definition landscape photography with amazingly advanced digital photo cameras. Mm-hmm. And he's done a project for all the national parks in America. And I remember looking at one of his paintings, or there were almost paintings, one of his photographs. Standing in front of it is a large blow up, and it's almost like you take a telescope and look at the photograph and look across the valley, for example, of Mount St. Helens, as if it was another dimension. There's hardly any photographs in the world that are as detailed as his. And I remember he actually taught me to use a digital camera early in the mid-90s when no one else had a digital camera. I had one at the Tribune, and I could have sold them, because I would always get asked about my digital camera, which was a small digital camera, but hardly anyone else had one. And as the years have gone by, Stephen Johnson was right about the fact that digital cameras would take over everything.
Yeah,
and
quite
they
a
have.
revolution.
And he's a remarkable artist in his own right, and his photos are really remarkable. And I think he brings a strong presence to Pacifica as an artist who's located his studio here.
Mm-hmm. And another pair that are prominent in the artistic community are Andrew Leone and Nancy Hall.
These are Very well-known people in Pacifica. I remember meeting Andrew early in my career in Pacifica and writing a story about him. He was getting his Master of Fine Arts in San Jose as a painter, and his wife, Nancy, is a singer and also an artist, installation-type artist, and they're both very politically active in Pacifica, too. So they have multiple claims to fame here in Pacifica. Very environmentally interested, involved in various aspects of Pacifica and outside of Pacifica. Andrew's a teacher now at City College and is greatly involved in the politics of City College. And they're amazingly talented people. When they got married, the singer Neil Young came to their wedding because Nancy sang on one of his tours as a backup singer, and her band, the Curios, is very, very popular locally. So they're people who have a wider reputation than just their work and their life here in Pacifica too.
Certainly. And then Jerry Barrish and his whimsical art.
Well, Jerry is one of the people that I think they could probably do a college course on. Jerry Barrish, his initial claim to fame was he was a 1960s era bail bondsman in San Francisco, and he helped. And there's newspaper articles and books that include Jerry Barrish's name. He bailed a lot of political protesters out as well as other people in his career. And then he wanted to be an artist, and he focused on creating an artistic style, something that he wanted to do that was unique, to become a world-class artist. And so he took found objects from the beach and glued them together. And if anyone has ever been to a Jerry Barrish show at a gallery, and he has presented art all over the world at very famous galleries. He has turned himself into a world-famous artist because of his dedication to his art. And the only connection with this book and that aspect of it is that they're making a movie about Jerry Barrish now that's going to come out on PBS this summer, where they explore his background and his interest and his involvement in Pacifica, which I was very proud of. And his art is really something, and he's locally involved in the Concert Center and the Performing Arts and the Sanchez Arts Center, which provides spaces for working artists and also has shows that are quite well curated here in Pacifica that draw attention to him. And his artwork is, sometimes it makes you laugh because he just puts together plastic flotsam and jetsam into personalities. It's really remarkable artwork, and he's an interesting guy and quite local and very involved in Pacifica.
Mm-hmm. And we should mention Bruce Latimer, since we're broadcasting from Channel 26, his favorite place to be.
Well, Bruce Latimer is probably someone that people, fans of this local access TV station here in Pacifica, he has done 900 variety talk shows with music and discussions, and almost every musician in the Bay Area has come at one time or another. I put a picture that I actually took of him with Tuck and Patty when they were on his show years ago. He's an interesting man who I don't think even Jimmy Fallon loves doing this kind of work as much as Bruce Latimer does. He's won awards for cable access, and he's just done it for the love of being on TV and entertaining people and locally. And I think it's just remarkable perseverance and dedication to this kind of work. He's a remarkable guy, and people who have watched this TV station at all over the years, I mean, I've been here since 1990. He's been on the whole time, since 2014 still.
Mm-hmm. And then across town we have Spindrift Players, a local drama theater, and you have a representative here.
Well, this is the remarkable Roger Generou. And Roger Generou, and this is one of my favorite pictures I ever took of an artist, because I thought that this captured part of what Roger Generou is. He has been in countless productions. He basically managed what was called the Asylum, an improv group that was a split off from the local community theater for 25 years, just for an enormous amount of time. So he was one of the people that helped train a lot of people who are interested in the arts to get an opportunity to perform. And many times, many years, he did the special version of A Christmas Carol and performed in that. He's also performed as Frankenstein, and he's an interesting guy, and I think anybody who's ever been to the theater in Pacifica has seen a Roger Generou perform at one time or another in the last 25 years.
Yeah, very, very funny. And on the more serious side over there at Spindrift is John Pantalian.
John Pantalian was a teacher and a children's theater director, and he also acted in countless productions and was involved in the management of the Spindrift Theater for many, many years. Both he and his wife have been involved in theater, and the city gave him a Lifetime Achievement Award, and the picture that I have is of his wife pinning a flower on him at the celebration that the city of Pacifica gave to him as a Arts Lifetime Achievement Award. And he's also a very sweet man and a leap year baby.
Yeah, I love his corny jokes too.
Yeah, he has corny jokes, but he epitomizes the love of theater in a way that hardly anyone I've ever met does, and giving that gift to children and having other people be inspired. He was really good for the theater in Pacifica and attracting people to it over the years.
Well, we have representatives of poetry too amongst the arts here in Pacifica.
Yeah, this is another artist like Nancy Hall and Andrew Leone who's also involved in political activism. And when Michael Rothenberg lived here in Pacifica, he was very involved with the whole Maury Point issue and whether or not there would be development on Maury Point. I mean, very, very involved in that for many, many years. He also ran the Shell Dance Nursery, orchid nursery that's here in Pacifica. And in recent years, he's been involved in the poetry movement and 1,000 Poets, and he has edited books on Philip Whalen, one of the beat poets, a very famous beat poet, and has one of the original digital magazines about poetry that has been going on for longer than just about any other digital magazine. And people can submit poetry, and he has famous poets on it. So he's a very active and interesting guy in the arts world. And when he was in Pacifica, he's very active in political movements too.
I seem to recall reading that he had been selected to help restore an arboretum over in Singapore, was it, that got destroyed by a hurricane, and he took a plane load of his orchids and bromeliads over there. So he's very recognized in that field.
And he produced a very big, a beautiful coffee table book about bromeliads too, as an expert on bromeliads, definitely. Yeah. Yes.
Interesting guy. Roberta Ewald and her musicals about Pacifica.
Well, Roberta Ewald had a travel agency, but she was involved in music, and she had a production company that only did original musicals, and she had pretty good success with that. But one of the things that she's really well known for is she produced a musical about Pacifica once, and they called it the Coastside Bowl. And this was in the early years of Pacifica. It's one of the people who's also in the Pacifica history book. But her involvement in the arts stretched out and brought a lot of people to Pacifica. And her son Grant is a performer, and he performed for many years at Nichols as the house band there, and provided a lot of entertainment for Pacifica in a lot of different ways, the family.
As it happens, we're planning a revival of one of her shows. It might be
Really?
Coastside Bowl as the kind of the formal opening of the Little Brown Church later in the year.
Well, that would be synchronicity. That would be perfect. I think that would be a really, really nice thing to do and a nice way to honor her memory.
Let's see, Will Durst, what a guy.
Well, Will Durst is someone who is connected to Pacifica because he's married to Debbie Durst, and Debbie Durst is a comedian who works in a duo with this other gentleman here, Michael Dossier, who is also a Pacifican. So Deb and Mike have their own group, but Will Durst is Debbie's husband, and so he's involved in Pacifica. And these comedians are just, all three of them are wonderful comedians, but Will Durst has become probably the most well-known comedian for one of the things that he says is it's comedy for people who read. It's political comedy, and you have to be pretty well aware of what's going on to catch what he does. And if you do, it's some of the best in the whole country. And I think other nationally known comedians look to Will Durst for that top level. And
I enjoy him the way I did Mort Saul when he was alive.
yeah, he's a brilliant guy, and he's very active, and he's very much in love with Pacifica and a part of Pacifica because his wife Debbie grew up here, and their connection is really strong.
He does a benefit for the concert hall once a year also.
Yeah, he's done a lot of shows in Pacifica to benefit local activities.
Well, let's see. We've discussed a lot of artistic people, and I ought to.
Well, one of the things that some of the people that I wrote about, actually, some of the older people. Nick Gust is probably the most famous person, and he died this year, or actually died last fall before the book came out. And Pete Pereira, who was known for moving houses all over Pacifica and all over the Bay Area, made his fame that way. He died this last year too, so I really had to rush to get the book out. I was feeling bad about people that I wanted to honor in this book who I got to a little too late for that.
Yeah, I agree that this makes a big difference with them gone. Very much missed. I didn't want to I didn't want to miss Tom Jackson and Jackie D. Sill.
Yeah.
Every time I see a statue of oh shoot! Now I got brain freeze. Anyway, one of his themes was Spanish. Don Quixote.
Oh, Don Quixote. Yeah.
So anyway, that personifies Tom Jackson to me, and his whole whimsical state of mind.
Tom is he's a member of the E. Clampus Vitus group, which is a sort of irreverent California history organization. But he's also a great cartoonist and a painter and an interesting raconteur. And for many, many years, he would write letters to the editor that I would publish, and he still does to some degree. And his wife Jackie is a painter and a great artist in her own right. They often win a lot of awards at the local fair, and I have to say that I really enjoyed knowing these people. And Tom, I tried always to get him to be a cartoonist for the editorial pages, and he didn't like to be told what kind of cartoon to write or what kind to draw. So we took the cartoons that he would give us and publish them when we could.
Yeah, I saw him just the other day. Let's see now. Let's talk a little bit about education. Bill, maybe?
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, Bill Michaelis.
Well, this is an early picture of Bill Michaelis, and one of the things that this gentleman, he's an active professor of fun, and when I found this out about him, and I realized what a serious and academic subject fun and playfulness are, and how it helps people live their lives. I mean, this guy is known all over the world for the workshops he does through San Francisco State and his own company that he created. But the thing he's known in Pacifica for is he created the Family Fun Fest, which is part of the Fog Fest. And for a quarter of a century, Bill Michaelis has taken over a field there in Pacifica on one of the Fog Fest days, which is the local Pacifica festival, and had people walking on stilts and playing with balls and throwing things, and kids climbing through cardboard fortresses and non-competitive sports and fun. And Bill is one of the world's experts on this, and actually it's when you read his book or learn about the impact of non-competitive sports and how people don't have enough real fun. And he's an amazing man, and he's been very involved locally in Pacifica activities too.
Yeah, we're lucky to have a citizen like that. And speaking of good citizens, Helen James is one.
Well, it was an honor to put Helen James in this book. Helen James is today. She's controlling the camera here at the local TV station doing this show, which is just proof of how amazing she is, because she's been active her whole life in Pacifica, involved in the schools, involved in the just anything you can think of. In fact, I asked her when I interviewed her for this page if she'd ever been asked to run for city council, and in the early days when Pacifica was still a brand new city, a lot of people said, "Oh, Helen, you should do this because you're so good at what you do and working with people and dealing with the school issues." And she never really ran, but she's never stayed unbusy. This is someone who does so much for this community, and there's not a single person who knows anything about Pacifica who didn't know Helen and feel the same way that I feel about her. And she's done a lot for this town in terms of heart and soul.
True, very true indeed. Let's see, was there one of Coach Gray by any chance?
Yeah.
I'll have to fish a little bit here. Yeah, I wanted just to, maybe we can say a word about Paul Azavito, because he was so much a part of Pacifica history and the Tribune as well.
Well, my relationship with Paul Azavito was I got to know him when I worked at the newspaper and realized that he was like an archive of history in his mind. Before there was the internet, there was Paul Azavito. He could remember phone numbers of people who had bought ads or who were involved in he wrote letters to the editor of the Chronicle and our own paper. He was politically involved and knew everyone in town, and I think was a real example of a small town heart. I mean, he knew everybody in town and had an opinion about everything in town, and for many years he wrote a column in the newspaper called The Reactor. So he was always reacting against something or for something, but a wonderful guy.
Well, Chris, we're just about out of time, and I know there are many more interesting people here, and it's been great talking to you about some of my favorites.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's been a real honor.
So thank you for being here, and thanks also to the Pacifica Historical Society for having this wonderful way of preserving history on video. If you'd like to get involved with the Pacifica Historical Society and our many projects, our address is Post Office Box 752, Pacifica 94044, or you can find us on the internet at pacificahistory.org, or you can call 650-359-5462. Thanks for watching our show, and remember the words of Longfellow. Lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. Thank you.